Clash at the Castle is a few days away, but Monday Night Raw steamrolled through this week, and lots of stuff went down on it. All that we're going to cover off on the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast, and once again, coming through that forbidden door, which we're going to be talking about quite a bit with some news that has dropped today or news that's dropped over these last couple of hours that we're going to talk about. But the man that's normally AEW, it's normally Raw, is Robinson or whatever. Dave, you are back on the Raw review.
I bet you're sick of me, you mate, at the minute.
It's good, man. I like talking to people. It's better, as I said the other day, talking to a wall, you don't get a response back. So
Yeah.
the fact
I'll
that
give you a response.
yeah, might not like the response, but you'll give me the response. But anyway, look, let's just talk Forbidden Doors now. So just quickly, we just not long come off the podcast with Lance Archer, and we were talking Forbidden Door with AEW. But so there's things that have happened on NXT, and there's things that have been announced just not that long ago that has really taken this Forbidden Door in a WWE to a new level. Now, we've already sort of had this partnership with TNA. Now, Cody Rhodes showed up on NXT this week and told Trick Williams that he would be his number one contender would be announced next week in a 25-man battle royal. And he said, and I quote, some faces you know, and some will be coming from different locker rooms. Now, on top of that, Pro Wrestling Noah tweeted out earlier on this morning. Um, there's going to breaking a major announcement from Noah, and the WWE will be made at our Yokohama Buntai or Thai event on Sunday, and a message from a certain wrestler will also be released. And I didn't go into say who that wrestler was. I'm guessing maybe Nakamura or something like that. But it does now seem as if we're getting doors opening left, right, and center, which is really going to only benefit wrestling at the end of the day.
Absolutely. It's really exciting, isn't it? And I think what we've seen in other companies and collaborating can work for everyone involved. You know, it's not one-sided. Both companies come out of it with more exposure and yeah, more, following on social media, everything, works for both parties involved. It just seemed in the past that WWE had a bit of an arrogance or an unwillingness to work alongside the smaller companies. But obviously this is a different time. This is a very different time. This is different people at the helm. This is different company at the helm. Essentially, we take a TKO group, but also somebody in Triple H creatively that's got a different way of doing things. And he is more in tune with today's wrestling fan. And he does acknowledge that a lot of wrestling fans watch a lot of different companies.
Yeah.
You know, they don't just watch WWE. So I think this is great. I've really enjoyed the crossover stuff they've done in the past with TNA, even going back to Mickey James being in the Royal Rumble, I think it was last year, possibly the year before that. But that was a kind of a sign of things to come. And obviously we've had Jordan Grace as well this year, and she's involved again at the minute. So yeah, really, really positive things to come, hopefully from that agreement, not just with TNA and the WWE, but did you say with Pro Wrestling Noah as well?
Yeah, interesting to find out about that. Obviously, that'll be Sunday, so we'll keep abreast of that on across our platforms. Another one that we kind of have to thank him for, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there has been a bit of news about him today. Obviously, Scott D'Amore was massively influential in this partnership with WWE, which is carried on. TNA executives was at NXT Battleground this past weekend. I'm assuming setting up next week. I'm assuming TNA, sorry, will have some involvement in that battle royal next week. And I think AJ Styles and Natalia have expressed interest in going and doing some stuff for a TNA at a later date. So that's how many. But Scott D'Amore was a name, and we kept mentioning about him coming back into wrestling. The news with about that's dropped today is that will not be happening until earliest of 2025 February, which is when his no compete clause with Impact expires. So it does seem as if we'll be waiting quite some time before we see Scott D'Amore pop up if rumors are true.
Yeah, strange one, but obviously, if his contract stipulates then, if he's still is he on gardening leave then, or
He's on
something to
guard,
those
Pete Guard,
effects?
and he's got it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. in terms of, he's
Yeah,
continuing to get a payout. He's still on the,
yeah, he's essentially being paid still until February.
Mhm. As long as he doesn't kind of contravene that and break the terms of that contract. So depending on what uh, that payment is, you'd kind of be mad, wouldn't it? And so
I mean,
it
come
just
on,
depends what the
if someone said to you, you can sit at home for 8 months and just get paid your salary, and do nothing, or you can,
yeah.
what are you gonna,
Well, we could harken back to when the WWE,
yeah,
WWF bought
yeah,
WCW, and you had guys like Booker T and
hmm
DDP and a couple others that decided to take the contract and give up that guaranteed money that they were earning from the WCW contract. But then you had the others, like Sir Kevin Nash, Goldberg, that were on much bigger contracts and a lot more money. And they did exactly that. They sat at home, they continued to get paid, and then they took the opportunity that came along at the end of that. So I'm sure there will be opportunities for Scott D'Amore for what he did with Impact, with TNA. Um, I think any company would be looking to have him, and I'm sure he'll get a number of job offers when the time comes, and we'll see him back in wrestling in 2025.
Oh, definitely so. I think so. It will be a case of when and not if, for
Yeah.
sure. Let's get into Raw now. The Liv Morgan Revenge Tour has been something that I've spoken about quite a lot on this channel. Um, Now, obviously, so to set a scene, and I did set this the other week, but for your benefit, Dave, we'll set it again. Obviously, her point was that Rhea Ripley injured her. She's going to come back and basically take everything away from Rhea Ripley. Well, Rhea got injured, so she took Rhea out. She's taken Rhea's title, and
Yeah.
over the last few weeks, we have seen this unusual alliance, or trying of an alliance with Dominic Mysterio. She kissed him last week, 2 weeks ago, last week. Well, she's doing all sorts of stuff, and this week, she then decided to give Dominic Mysterio her hotel key and say that she would be there. She wants to talk to him. Um, and then coincidentally, later on that night, there was a six-man that happened later on with the Judgment Day, Braun Strowman, and a couple of others whose names forget me for forgetting who they were. Um, and then when they went back to the Judgment Day clubhouse, and this is where you've got to pay a very keen eye. What WWE are doing good is when they're going backstage, you have to have your eyes about you. If you did notice, there was actually two things that I'd noticed through this Judgment Day thing. I'll tell you the first one because it's about Liv Morgan and the key. Finn Balor snuck the key away. Before I get into the second point, because it's totally irrelevant to this Liv Morgan thing, is the Judgment Day soon to be imploding, and is Liv going to be the back end of this?
Yeah, it's interesting which way they go. Um, who's pulling the strings, because you could consider Damian Priest as well. But yeah, is Finn acting of his own accord? Is he acting on behalf of Damian? Um, yeah, where's that going? Is there some alliance with Finn and um Liv, or maybe one's going to be struck up? Really interesting. I think the match with Ray, wasn't it, and Dragon Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you say, she got knocked off the apron and landed on Dom, and that's kind of added to everything that's been going on in the last few weeks with the flirting and the kissing and basically trying to take him away from Mummy, from Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
I think I mean, it's a bit soap opera, but it is kind of an interesting story. I am invested in it, and as you say, with the added questions about the implosion of the Judgment Day. It'll be because if Liv wants to take everything from Rhea's kind of recognized, or certainly was, as the leader of the Judgment Day, or
Mm.
maybe that's different now that Damien's world champion. But yeah, I think what they're doing, well, I don't know. It's very unpredictable, and there's a few different ways they can go with it. But I'm certainly enjoying it, and I think all of the characters are doing a great job in telling the story. I think Liv
Definitely are.
is best
Yeah.
work of the career, to be honest.
Yeah, Liv's doing the best work of her career for sure. There was a couple of funny bits in there, which the bit at the start where Dominic was backstage with her, she said, you've got somebody with you that wants you to call her mummy, but I want to call you daddy," or something
Yeah,
along those lines, or you're a gorgeous young man who I'd like to call daddy, or something along those lines. And then
yeah,
the funny line during it was when they was backstage with the Judgment Day, and Dominic was saying everything had happened, and he pulled out the key, and Carlito was like, "That's cool."
yeah. A call back to his Paleo
Uh,
Caribbean call. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I did have a chuckle at that one
A
when that
funny
happened.
line. I mean, Dom, lucky man. I mean, he's involved with Rhea and Liv on screen. He's married to a really good-looking lady as well in real life. So yeah,
I'm
he
surprised he stood up
living
as
his
quick as
best
he.
life.
Yeah, I'm surprised he stood up as quick as he did when
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Liv was on top. But going on to a second thing of this, and again, you have to be quite again, this is again what WWE do really well with interviews. You do have to keep your wits and eyes about you. The second point I wanted to make is not necessarily, well, it could be to do with Liv at the end. When it goes into the Judgment Day's locker room the first time, if you looked at the top of the screen, you saw a Money in the Bank briefcase, but the Money in the Bank briefcase was in the form of Demon Finn Balor's mask. So that the basically the briefcase had the mask around it. I think I've got a picture. I don't know if it will be seen or if you can see it on screen. So, but you can just going in and out of shot, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you can just see it there.
yeah.
Um, is that doing so? Are we maybe looking at this where Damian Priest is successful at Clash, and we'll get into stuff with Drew in a minute, that he's successful at Clash? Perhaps Finn Balor wins Money in the Bank and cashes in on Damian Priest, perhaps with the help of Liv Morgan.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory. I mean, I just going into Clash at the Castle, everything would suggest to me that Drew would be winning in his home country, but I think Damien's done such a good job as world champion. He's such
Yep.
a credible champion. He just looks like a star. I think Kevin Nash said the same on his podcast.
Yeah.
He's done a great job, elevated into that role. First time he's had the big belt. Um, it would be a massive shame to kind of take it off him, and they don't really do too much, flip-flopping of the titles these
Mhm.
days. They tend to be longer reigns. They're not always going to be. And maybe this is an example where they give Drew the moment on the weekend, and Damien gets it back at some point, even as early as Raw next week. But yeah, I think that with Finn Balor, it certainly seems like they're building him back up again.
Yeah.
And for too long at times, he's been kind of a supporting cast member of the Judgment Day, or in the background having tag matches and stuff. Or yeah, if we can get main event level Finn Balor, which the Demon has been kind of
Yeah.
synonymous with that. Um, I think that's a great move by the WWE. I've enjoyed Judgment Day, I really have, and I'm enjoying Carlito's addition to it as well. That moment was great, but yeah, I think I'm a lot more interested in Carlito as a member of the Judgment Day as I was prior to him, in the LWO.
Mm.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of moving parts there. There's a lot of interconnecting, um, different character arcs and different stories all involved in the overall story. So I think they're doing a great job. I'm interested to know which way you would predict that main event going at the weekend.
Yeah, well, actually, let's get into that right now. Actually, so see, later on in the main event, Raw was obviously Drew, wasn't Drew? Yeah, Drew versus Finn.
Finn,
And if
yeah.
he won that, the Judgment Day would be banned from ringside, which Drew did go on to win. So you would think that Drew is favourite to the show. Now, before I give you my view, there's just another interesting tidbit that's been a bit of a change in what WWE normally do. So again, this is according to rumors that the WWE is altering plans for a press conference after the Clash at the Castle. They seem to be doing a post-show, basically pulling media from the post-show. Now, that would indicate to me, if I was a betting man, and I'd already had this thought in my head anyway prior to this, That would indicate to me that Drew isn't winning at Clash at the Castle. And I honestly think that CM Punk is going to cost Drew McIntyre the World Heavyweight Championship in Glasgow. He may even go as far. I mean, the reaction is going to be interesting because listen, Punk's been booed before. We know that. He's been booed WWE, he's been booed in AEW. But my opinion is Punk costs McIntyre the championship and sets up them two at SummerSlam, probably maybe along those lines. Um, yeah, I don't see McIntyre walking out of Clash at the Castle the champion. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and Drew didn't mention Punk, did he? On
Not for
Raw.
the first time in
Yeah.
ages. Yeah, normally you have.
So, and that may well be because of what may well play out, and that's really interesting in terms of pulling the press conference and not
Mm,
having media there. Um,
yes.
I think, well, regardless, McIntyre's going to get a hero's ovation.
Yeah, definitely.
So anybody that goes against McIntyre, whether that's Damien in the match or whether that's Punk as part of the match, they're going to get booed. But as you say, Punk can take that, and if it would be a bad night for Scotland and a bad night for the fans and for Drew, but in the overall story between Drew and Punk, that would be absolute gold. And as you say, if it goes on to make that story a lot more successful, draw more money, get a bigger house at SummerSlam, yeah, I could see that happening as well. So really fascinating. And we were talking about the other day, possibly the AEW review, but just wrestling in general, the unpredictability at times, it's fine for things to be predictable for them to make sense, but it's also fine as well going in, or a treat for us as fans going into these big premium live events and pay-per-views, not knowing which way things are going to go, not knowing who might be involved, not knowing what the creative, it's fun to speculate on it. Um, we don't want to know the spoilers, but it's nice going into these shows when whether it's a coin toss, really, which way to go, and you can make a compelling argument for both competitors as to who's going to win and why. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think they're doing a real good job.
Oh, they're doing a great job. It is fantastic to do, and we'll find out this coming Saturday what happens at Clash at the Castle. Looking forward to that one for sure. Want to switch gears to Ricochet, the man of the moment. Now, this is someone who we spoke about on the AEW catch up that we have with Gary Joe, and we're saying that Ricochet is being written off of WWE or written out of WWE, and he was, but real glass as well. Um,
Yeah, that was trending.
but he basically the long story short was there was a match between Braun Breaker and Ilya Dragunov, which was absolutely fantastic. One of my favorite matches of the year. Braun Breaker's an absolute star. Dragunov is sensational as well. Ricochet got involved in that sort of through Braun Braun over the barricade kind of thing, and then it basically went backstage and Braun Breaker annihilates. I mean, I think the actual throw into the truck and landing on the concrete probably hurt more than when
Yeah.
he got sort of power slammed off the stairs onto the windshield. Now, thus writing him out. Now, so people have made some interesting points online though that I wanted to bring up on this because they were saying that the way that he was written out is more of a way that you would write somebody out if they were coming back.
Mhm.
Because also, if you sometimes you get written out, you just lose, or you just, Lita got robbed up by crime time or so. I can't remember the bits and pieces. But when you've lost generally, you normally do a job on the way out, which is just natural. It's what they call. But a lot of people were saying that this was the way it felt was it was a write-off with a view to coming back. Has your stance changed, or do you still see him going to AEW or B somewhere else?
So I I totally see where they're coming from. I listened to
Mm.
Busted Open as well, and Bully
Yeah.
Ray and Dave LaGreca were talking about it. And essentially, what Bully was saying was that by involving Samantha and reminding everyone that they are a real life couple,
Hmm.
having her involved in the angle, for them to not bring Ricochet back at some point, there's no way that they can pay that off. There's
Mm.
no, there would be no reason for them to do that. Whereas now with her, with her getting emotional and her actually leaving the ringside position, and Pat had to step in for her.
That's great, by the
Uh,
way.
yeah,
Get into that.
but anybody else kind of coming along in the future if Ricochet's not there to defend Samantha Irving, because if they carried it on with Bron Breakker and he's tormenting Samantha because he took out her partner, it's just not going to be the same if somebody's fighting on Ricochet's behalf or on Samantha's
Mm.
behalf. So the way they set that up, it would suggest that a deal or an agreement has been reached and we may well be seeing the return in a few weeks. In saying that, the reports that came out about Ricochet were from really good, reputable
Yes.
sources. Um, and that was pretty much across the board. Now, that doesn't mean that things haven't changed.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think Tony Khan has kind of refused to comment on
Yes.
Ricochet because he's
Yeah.
he's he's still kind of under contract. Whether that's kind of imminently coming to an end, or when maybe he knows, he may be aware that Ricochet is actually staying there. Maybe they've had discussions and they haven't gone anywhere. Um, I'd like to think WWE have see the value in retaining Ricochet, and as you say, combining him with Samantha, who is mega popular as well. Because that's the thing for me. I don't know what her contract status is, but if you're WWE, there's one thing losing a great wrestler, but Samantha's certainly one of the greatest ring announcers that I can recall. She's, you know, right up there. She really adds something extra to the show, and they're aware of that. They don't want her to go anywhere. So maybe they have made a better offer or better creative plans for Ricochet in order to retain both of them.
Yeah.
So interesting. I think, as you say, quite rightly, this isn't the way they generally write somebody off
No.
when when they're on the way out of the company. And so they don't necessarily bury people every time or make people look bad. Um, but to do it in this way, to leave that stuff on the table, that would be unlike WWE
Mm.
to not have an opportunity to pay that off.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll certainly find out if he goes anywhere soon beforehand. That it is obviously off, but yeah, it was just an interesting way to write him out, and they did. A lot of people picked up on that point, and it was a good point. I thought I'd raise it. I'm still not sure where he's going, but one person that we know that is staying with the WWE is Natalia. It seems to be a lock now that she stays with the WWE. There is one other contract that we'll get to after Natalia because it ties into a storyline that was on Raw. Natalia staying. I'm a little bit disappointed. I mean, I get it. I mean, look, we talked about partners, Tyson Kidd's, TJ Wilson's the husband. He's there doing all the producing and the agent and stuff like that. I just thought the time was right for Natty to leave the WWE. She'd been there a decade, and sometimes that little fresher up elsewhere may have done well. Maybe even not necessarily AEW, maybe TNA could have gone there and done some bits and pieces there. But Natty's staying at WWE. What do you make of that? And is it maybe is it too late maybe in her career? Not they're saying that she's old by any stretch, but is it that she's getting to that sort of Gary Joe made that point, and I think you both made the point about her being a coach or a producer. So does she maybe see it as it's too late to start afresh somewhere else?
Possibly, maybe those are conversations that have happened with the WWE.
Mm.
Because we mentioned going somewhere else and perhaps having helping out backstage or having that role. Maybe that's already on the table for her at WWE. So it's like, well, if I can still stay as an on-screen character and be involved in some stories and, progress my career backstage with a new role and some training. I'm sure she does a lot of that anyway, just given her experience and, how she's thought of by not only the company but her peers, her fellow wrestlers. Um, so I'm not massively surprised. I think if she was going to leave, now would be the time to do it, to try that, other opportunities somewhere that stage in a career, because I think in a few years' time maybe it would be too late though. So I think this is her saying that she's going to be at the WWE for the rest of her active career.
Yeah. Speaking of, we're just going back to Ricochet quickly because something has just broken. The PW Insider, who originally broke the news that he was leaving,
Yeah.
has basically said that there's been talk since Monday that Ricochet has time left on his deal before it expires. And with a huge amount of attention he's received, and with the news that he is slated to depart, there has been a creative pitch made for him to make at least one more appearance. Now, his contract's apparently up in July, so they could technically bring him back for that blow off with Breaker,
Mm.
and then he leaves. I mean, he may have to lose it, which would be weird, sort of bringing someone back after doing that and then lose, unless he gets like a revenge, maybe like a one match but one other appearance where he comes back the week before or something and does something to Braun Breaker, and that sets up a maybe like a loser leaves match or something along those lines. I don't know, but
Yeah, yeah.
interesting little bit that broke. Want to move on to somebody else right now who's gearing up for a comeback. Now, over these last however many months, we have seen these QR codes flash up on Raw, on SmackDown, on basically WWE programming full stop. I've been talking about it for ages. They normally give you a clue or a code or something along those lines. This week's QR code flashed up when the LWO was coming out, and basically the end part of it says that you refused salvation, sorry, and there was a timer, a bit like a countdown timer. And Jericho had just a longer one, and underneath that, the reckoning is inevitable. The clock runs out 8 p.m. Eastern next Monday when Raw starts. So either two things. Now that is meant to be, as we all know, Uncle Howdy. We're expecting Eric Rowan. We're expecting Nikki Cross. We're expecting Joe Gacy, potentially Alexa Bliss, and also another name that was thrown in recently was Big Damo, Killian Dane, as well, but potentially could be coming in for this. The fact that it stops before or as Raw goes on the air could mean involvement at Clash at the Castle Saturday.
Maybe, yeah, or certainly the way that Clash of the Castle ends. If you're not giving the crowd that big McIntyre win in front of the home crowd, like how else are you going to send them home happy, or how else are you going to finish the show? So that may well play into it. I mean, as I say, to be honest, I'm still kind of wrapping my head around them not going with Drew because I've just convinced myself since they announced Clash at the Castle, given what happened at Cardiff as well with Roman. I was there for that, and I mean the Welsh crowd. There was a lot of Scottish fans that had come down to support Drew from Scotland down to Wales for Clash, expecting Drew to be the one to beat Roman. So I'm just trying to picture the reaction if he doesn't win. But if they don't, they've got to do something else. You would suggest it can't just go off the air with Punk posing, getting booed out of the building. So yeah, maybe we see something. I mean, what we're saying, Wyatt Six, is that what we're still calling them at the minute? Is that the rumors still?
I don't actually know what they're going to be called. They haven't
Yeah,
really, Wyatt Six was always the rumor when
yeah.
Bray was alive, obviously, and they haven't really given a name for the Uncle Howdy faction. So Wyatt Six could still be the descendants of Bray Wyatt. They could still use Bray Wyatt's name.
And and do you think Bo Dallas, obviously Bray's brother,
Mhm.
do you think he will be the leader, the mouthpiece?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so. I didn't when I first I did ask the Twitter universe about, and they all agreed with me when I said about where do I said that the faction screams mid card without not being disrespectful, but if you look at the names in there, you know, do you see any of those guys going for the world title? No, and I'm
yeah.
hoping that they don't do it for the sake of Bray, because we've done that with Eddie, they've done it with Ray. They put the title on him, and he was doing all that Eddie stuff. So I do see the Bo Dallas being the leader, yes, and the big mouthpiece of the faction. Yes, I do. Because Uncle Howdy's already been introduced to us. Uncle Howdy was
Yeah.
always around. I mean, Joe Gacy has been, but there'll be a different. Everyone else will have a different type of character. Rowan still might have that sheep mask as long as he doesn't bring the mechanical spider. I think we'll all be okay. Yeah, my assumption is Howdy, Bo Dallas will be the leader of that group. That's how I see it anyway.
We're not thinking Strowman will be involved. I know he's been doing other stuff lately. He's been like helping out the LWO, hasn't he? But obviously with his history in the Wyatt family and with Eric Rowan.
Good point. Obviously, but the other one that would have been ideal for that is also now no longer with us. That being Luke Harper or
Yeah.
probably Lee. It could be something they may add to this down the line. I think that's the key, and I don't think they're all going to. I think Alexa Bliss will be a late comer into this,
Hmm.
if she even does become. I know she's due back soon from maternity leave. So that's one. Braun Strowman could be another one they could add to it. That it will just be a start faction, and it could be that they take it and see how what the reaction is. Because the other thing I've already said is all of this hype going to be better than the actual what happens when they we've revealed, if that makes sense? Because you do get that a lot, some really big build up. You're looking forward to something, and when it happens, you could argue Bray Wyatt's last run was,
Yeah.
was White Rabbit was great. Once he come out, it kind of just petered
Yeah.
out pretty quickly, didn't
Fell a
it?
bit flat, didn't it? Yeah, I know the LA night match, the what did they call that? The lights
Jeez,
out,
Mountain Dew,
Dew lights out match was it?
something or other. Yeah, yeah, that wasn't good at all.
No, but as you say, the actual story and the teases and the reveal was fantastic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Going to the different camera angles and then when he came out. So yeah, that might be a case. I mean, I am intrigued. I'm definitely, and I think a lot of people will be, not just in terms of fans of the show, but on social media as well. So yeah, whether they just leave it now and kick off Raw with it on Monday, or whether we get something at Clash of the Castle remains to be seen. But yeah, regardless, I'll be watching.
Yeah, they might get a reveal at Clash at the Castle, and then it sort of says, kind of
Yeah,
leads you into Raw. Perhaps they don't have to be there as such. Maybe like a video play or something along those lines.
yeah, yeah,
But we'll see. Final bit that we're going to get into, which is another guy that's staying. By the sounds of it, that being Chad Gable. That was the one that we all expected
yeah,
to stay. Now he does have the Intercontinental title match Saturday against Sami Zayn, but again, if you're an eagle-eyed viewer of Raw and you watch the backstage stuff now, recently he was being seen backstage being speaking to Diamond Mine, and this week was Ivy Nile, who was the valet of Diamond Mine. So it now looks as though that they are going to be potentially moving Chad away from Otis, Maxine, and Tozawa. And kind of my view on this is it's team angle, isn't it? If you look at these two guys, I mean, Ivy Nile was an impressive feat of strength in herself.
yeah,
But if you look at that, it screams 2024 team angle.
yeah, 100%. And I think they will go with Chad at the weekend. I think
Yes.
Michael Cole as well on commentary. He made at least one, if not more, um, references to the fact that Chad Gable had never held a singles championship,
Yeah.
and that to me, is a bit of a tease that that's what we'll be getting at the weekend. I think a new contract has been agreed. I think it's probably going to be very lucrative and it's going to be long term. I actually think I'm disappointed as an AEW fan,
Mm.
uh, you know, but I think given the investment in Chad, given his ability, hopefully they see in him what we see in him, what a lot of the fans see in him, what his peers see in him. I'm sure they do. They wouldn't have invested so much time and effort into Chad and his character if they didn't. So, yeah, I think this weekend will signal the start of an intercontinental title reign for him.
Yeah.
And I think we will get that new Team Angle style 2024. Um, yeah, Creed Brothers, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Creed Brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that would be a great fit. And it's a kind of continuation of some of the stuff that he's been doing, but a more serious
Mm.
element to it. We still get the intrigue with Otis and we'll get a match there. It's helped Otis, it's helped Tozawa, it's helped Maxine to a degree.
Yeah.
But I think it's ran its course now and it's time for Chad to go in a new direction and I think the start of that will be this weekend.
Yeah, I do. I certainly think that is what will happen this weekend for sure. I'll be looking forward to that and seeing what happens with Chad. I'd love the prospect of him and the Diamond Mine and Ivy Nile as a group. I think that has got some, as we said, the team angle vibes all over that.
Yeah.
It will be really, really good. Raw was good this week. It was a nice way to get you into Clash. Obviously, we've got live SmackDown this week. That means I've got to jump straight on after SmackDown live and do a live. showing of the SmackDown review, or the SmackDown Lowdown, as I like to call it. That should be interesting. And obviously, we move to Clash on Saturday, which we're really looking forward to as well. Coming up, though, we have to, again, we know this is WWE, but we do have to say a big thanks to AEW and Lance Archer for the interview the other day. It seems to have blown up quite nicely on social. So thank you for everyone for watching that. What I'm going to be doing, we're going to have Gary Joe back on Sunday for our weekly AEW catch up as well. I'm going to be collaborating with the Ringside Renaissance team next week as well, which I'm really much looking forward to. It's birthday week for me next week as well. That's going to be, I'm going to have a couple of days away, or at least 1 or 2 days off podcasted on those days to, just have a little break. And I can't believe I'm celebrating my 40th birthday watching my son's sports day. What a treat.
This is adulting, mate.
This adulting, parenting 101. England do play also on the same day. So, and I was going to say earlier on, and just as before we leave, well, I have to just say, you mentioned McAfee doing the announcing. What was it? The big handsome Scottish bastard as well. And then bum ass Judgment Day. Brilliant stuff from McAfee. Maybe he can take over for Samantha from a little period. I don't want Samantha gone too long because she's amazing at what she does. But McAfee every now and again would be great. But Dave, look,
Pat McAfee, just whatever they ask him to do, he smashes it out the water in his own style.
He takes it, really.
It's just a nice treat for us, I suppose, in some respects. The fact that you had McAfee doing that, but as you say, we don't want to be without Samantha too long. And looking at that news that you broke from, reported from PW Insider, it certainly sounds like something's changed there, or there's a possibility that Ricochet to AEW is naturally what's going to go down. Remains to be seen. I think it's great for Ricochet that he's got all these options. I'm really pleased, in 2024 that the wrestlers haven't just got one place that they're stuck in. There's a number of great options, a number of great financial options for them as well. But if WWE, the finances aren't an issue, if they get the creative right for Ricochet, given this story now with Samantha, this is the most people have been invested in Ricochet. You could argue his whole entire WWE run. So it would be a shame in some respects for them to not, capitalize on that now. But yeah, we'll see.
We will indeed. We will see indeed what happens over the next weeks and months. Intriguing is to say the doubt. But Dave, it's been great to review some Raw with you for a nice change. We'll be back to do some more AEW stuff this weekend. Looking forward to that and seeing Gary Joe again, as always, for a great chat of AEW. But guys, go and follow us. Try and join the crew on YouTube that have joined us, especially in the last few hours, that's for sure. Go and join us. Go and hit the Turnbuckle Podcast on YouTube, HTT Buckle on Twitter. 33 tickets left for Buckle Up, ladies and gentlemen. The last match was just announced. Call your shot gauntlet match for an opportunity at the Ignite Heavyweight Championship. Taylor James, Jack Torino, I can't remember these all now. The returning Will Cruz, the debuting Lycos 2, and a mystery person will be in that gauntlet match. And I'm just making sure that I didn't forget anybody, because I'm bound to get in trouble if I... Oh, Jay Joshua, there you go. That's the fifth man, and a mystery entrant.
Okay, so it'll be a six person.
It's a 6-man. It's a 6-man gauntlet. The one will not be announced, and it will be a surprise on show day for those of you lucky enough to get a ticket. But we're 30, I think it was 33 tickets, I was saying, away from a new Shenley Road record. Beaten Buckle Up last year. So if we do get all 33 sold, it will be a new attendance record as well. So get tickets. Go to the 96 Eventbrite. Go and get your tickets for that as well. And we'll see you there. Dave, I will see you again at the weekend.
We're looking forward to it, mate.
Looking forward to it. We don't have a signature sign off for Monday Night Raw, so all I can say to everybody is keep following us on social media. Thank you for watching and listening, if you're listening on Spotify. But until next time, everybody, buckle down and stay safe.